argument's sake, let's say I invested 10,000 and I've maybe spent 70,000 from the market profits doing other things. And let's say now that my portfolio is actually, for example, let's say 30,000. What's up and welcome back to my channel. It's JVceo. By the way, if you're new, make sure you like, comment and subscribe. Turn your notification bells on. I will be posting a lot more regularly as well. The reason why I've done this video is I have a lot of people that hit me up personally on sort of social media, and they always ask, oh bro, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with that? And then I thought, you know what, right? I'm going to be transparent with you guys, because you know, we always shout about the wins, but sometimes a lot of people kind of hide the losses. And you know, part of the reason why I stopped filming was, you know, just the market started to get to me a little bit, if I'm honest with you. However, you know, I was always in control, and that's what I want to share with you guys in terms of how to be in control of your losses and so on and so forth. So I lost, when I say lost, let's just sort of clarify a few bits, right? So generally speaking, I'm not going to give exact numbers, right? But I started stock investing with not a lot of money. Well, to be fair, I've been in the market for about 5 years, but then I went ham sort of like last summer. And when I started, I didn't start with a huge amount of money. I mean, it might be huge to some people, but I didn't start with what I would call a huge amount of money. I'll give you a ballpark figure, somewhere in the region of 70 to 110, somewhere in the region of that, overall, like in terms of what I actually put in over a period of time and stuff, right? So that's what I started with, and I made a significant amount of profit on that, like a huge amount of profit. So when I say I took a loss, I'm really and truly losing part of my profit. But I took a big loss on the stock market. I lost over £300,000 at the height of the crash, you know, and then I rotated into crypto. I locked in a significant amount into crypto. And then we kind of saw what happened with that as well. So, you know, I think all of that culminated into me just sort of drawing back, focusing more on the market, and just trying to right my wrongs, if that makes any sense. So this video is a two-part video. The first part is how to deal with your losses on the market, and I promise you this will be the best gem you've ever received, yeah, because some of the things I'm going to mention in this video is really top-notch. The second part to this video is, well, which would be a totally separate video, is I would actually do a real breakdown of how I actually lost the money, or how I, you know, lost the funds that I lost, essentially speaking, because a lot of it was avoidable sort of errors. I had a lot of greed and so on and so forth, but we can save that for another video. Now let's get started into, you know, how to deal with the losses in the market, just so you could stay in the market, not give up on yourself, and keep thriving. So for me, it's a lot of basic things, like, you know, in terms of in terms of getting your psychology right. Because the truth is, you know, the market isn't a get rich quick scheme. And I think a lot of people are mistaking the market to be that, because the truth is, yes, you know, a lot of people got rich quickly. You know, people put in 5 grand into meme stocks and made 150 grand. You know, people saw me doing 20 grand a day, 30 grand a day, 15 grand a day, and they're thinking, whoa, like, this is mind blowing. So it looked like a get rich quick scheme, but I think I've always been very transparent in that regards to say, look, this is not a get rich quick scheme. Make sure your psychology is right. Make sure you're not gambling, essentially speaking. So for me, the basics of dealing with the losses is making sure that your psychology is on point. And when I talk about psychology, I talk about things like habits into the market. Perhaps it's setting stop losses, you know, perhaps it's trading your actual plan. You know, so an example being, which again I'll go into more detail on the next video, as I mentioned earlier. But for example, I remember a month I said to myself, I think the first week of that month I'd done like 70 grand, and then I said to myself, whoa, I'm halfway through my target of 150 grand that particular month, and I said to myself, if I hit 150 grand, I'm gonna rotate out of my penny stocks and I'm gonna go into, proper companies and stuff like the Teslas and like the proper Nasdaq companies and whatnot. I smashed through that 150 grand target the following week, and then smashed through like 250. Well, I smashed through $250,000 for that month. But I never traded my plan. I stayed in the penny stocks, and I paid for that daily when the market crash came. So that's what I talk about in terms of the psychology. But also, I think there's a lot of people that do hit me up and they say, "Oh, I've lost X amount of money in the market. I'm sort of leaving the market. I've given up, and so on and so forth." That's because their psychology isn't right. The truth is, stock investing, especially more than any other kinds of investing, stock crypto investment, it's a massive burden on your emotional sort of state. And unless you have your psychology right, you're never going to flourish in the market. So I always say, when it comes to investing, trading, whatever you want to call it, I'll split it into 33, 33, 33, well, 33.3 all the way around. So the first third is your fundamentals. So getting your fundamentals right. The second third is getting your technical right. And then the final one is your psychology. If you have all three, then you're sort of guaranteed to flourish in the market. But with two, you can still flourish in the market. An example being, if you have sort of technical and psychology, you can flourish in the market. Fundamentals and psychology can flourish in the market. But what I find is, if you have technical and fundamental and you don't have the psychology, you're really not going to flourish in the market. That's my personal opinion. So that goes to emphasize on the importance of the psychology of trading. Maybe I would dedicate another separate video to sort of go into psychology of trading in a lot more detail. I had a webinar for the Stocks and Pips members. Some of you that was on it, I hope you enjoyed the webinar, by the way. But I think I sort of pointed out a few things when it came to the psychology of trading and just the psychology of taking a loss in general. You have to understand that that's not the end of the world. I'm telling you, bro. Like, the things that I've done this year, in fact, the success I had last year, and then the success I've had this year, is like, when I was having my success last year, I thought, wow, like, life is really good. And then this year came and blew last year out of water. And we're at that point, or well, even now we're only halfway through the year, and I've accomplished 4 times what I did last year, right? And then when I look back at all my previous losses, just in general, when you're taking that loss, it feels like it's the end of the world. But I'm telling you, look past it and look forward. You'll be shocked that 6 months down the line, 18 months down the line, you're going to look back and you're going to think, you know what, that was literally just a blip, so irrelevant in my overall journey. And this is where the psychology comes in. This is where the mental toughness and the mental soldier, or the mental bravado comes into play. And that would help you massively to not rob yourself out of the market. Moving on from that, I think another really good thing that you can incorporate is having a distraction from the market. I think a lot of people sort of took the market for what it was, and they great, but not too great. They dedicated everything and anything to the market, but you need a distraction in the form of another business, in the form of a job. And the reason why I say you need a distraction is, again, it's a mental game, isn't it? So when the market is bad, I have other businesses that I run, I have other businesses that I'm part owner in, that mostly I don't deal with the day to day, but obviously, when the market started crashing, it gave me an opportunity to sort of sit back and analyze those businesses and see, all right, cool, where can I aid this business and what's been going on in my absence and so on and so forth. And then I have businesses that I operate on a day-to-day basis, like my coaching and consultancy company, which I'm sort of relaunching. I'm going through the process right now of relaunching. So I think that distraction was really helpful because it meant that I had something to take my attention away. But that's the first reason for it. The second reason for it is it keeps you grounded financially as well. Because then, let's say you're making £5,000 a month from the other business or from your work, for example, but like the stock market or the crypto market was giving you 20 grand a month, 30 grand a month. Of course, that's the breadwinner at that particular moment. But then what happens when that gets taken away because the market has crashed or the market is bad, and then you don't have the other 5 grand coming in? You're screwed, essentially speaking. But now, if you kind of keep different angles working, then you know that you would never really be in a financial pickle. And I think that's another thing that affected a lot of people. I had people messaging me saying, "Oh, I put my whole life savings in crypto, or I put my whole life savings in stocks, and it hasn't paid off as I anticipated." But that's because they don't have any distractions. So I'll urge you, if you're sitting on a loss, as long as you believe in the fundamentals of the reason why you got into that stock or crypto pair in the first place, try and refocus. Go into something else, focus on your job, try and get a promotion, focus on your business, try and level up in that regards. And I'm telling you, you're going to feel so much better about whatever loss or however much you're nursing a loss in the market, 100%. Moving on from that, I think the other key thing is, again, quite understated, is just following the market, following the money, and being able to rotate in and out of whatever it is that you're in. So an example being, I knew when to rotate out of stocks. Even though I took the big loss relative, I still knew when to rotate out of that and sort of go into crypto. And then I kept an eye on the market cap on crypto. I saw when the flash crashes were happening, and again, I knew when to rotate out of crypto. And now I'm very much stock focused. So that's another way to sort of deal with your losses. Always be ready to sort of rotate out of one and into the other. Another thing being, never go all in, man. Never go all in into these things, regardless of what conviction you have in a crypto pair or a stock pair. Never, ever, ever go all in, for a couple of reasons. Number one, things can happen. The CEO can change, and then the whole direction of the business goes left. That's number one. Number two, you're not giving yourself any room for error. So now, what if the market starts crashing? You have no funds to average down because you've tied up all your funds in that particular sort of pair. And also, it's just overall, it's a very ignorant thing to do. You're betting on one thing sort of moving up, and I've actually done that, and it cost me a lot of money. It cost me over 100 grand in terms of a loss when I sort of threw the sink at a particular stock, and I whacked in well over 100 grand into it. But you sort of live and you learn. I knew that was wrong in the moment, but I didn't follow my own advice, and I'd implore you to do that. Follow the advice that I'm giving. But that's definitely an angle, or one of the ways that you could sort of deal with, or at least in this case, avoid, taking huge L's on the market. Now, on to something else that helps with dealing with a loss. Again, continuing on with the theme of rotating and distractions and so on and so forth, is day trading. Those of you on the Stocks and Pips group would actually attest to that. But I think, when you incorporate different elements to the market, now away from external distraction, in that financial market, you have a lot of distraction. So like, let's say the stock market is bad, you can fully rotate into crypto. Let's say both are bad, you can actually rotate into day trading. So for those of you that don't know how to day trade, try and learn that. Again, you could do the equivalent on the stock market in terms of forex, and I think that would help you deal with the losses. So if you follow me closely on my personal sort of social media, you would see the sort of numbers that I do on day trading. Sometimes I might sit down on a computer and I'll do 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I've even done 7 grand in a day trading. I don't really day trade every day because I believe there's a thing called over trading, and then you start losing money. But that's an example of how you deal with the losses. Yeah, it wasn't the 20, 30, 40 grand I would make on the stock market a day, but it helps to cushion everything and make whatever loss that you're sitting on quite bearable. So definitely look into day trading, 100%. So on to the next point, I would say is just being prepared, studying the market, being a real student of the game, definitely helps. The market is really predictable, I'm telling you. So, like let's say you're talking about the stock market, you start to look at the S&P 500 and all of these things. Obviously, depending on what you're trading, you start to look at the big tech companies because then they sort of lead the way in terms of what direction the market goes. You start to look at the Fed. You start to look at, are interest rates staying the same? What's inflation saying? And so on and so forth. I think the market is really predictable in that particular way. When you look at crypto, for example, even though he's losing his pumping power, but you start to look at the Elons and so on and so forth. And I think just being prepared in the market would definitely, go a long way and help you deal with your losses, because then you could sort of predict what the next angle would be. And then that way you could either avoid a loss or you could make a better decision whilst in a loss. And then finally, and in my opinion, probably the most important, right, is make sure you're utilizing your profits. Make sure you're utilizing your profits whilst you're in the green. Keep banking your profits. Don't be one of those that just wants to see green and actually don't bank in anything. So I'll give you an example, right? I've spent way more than I invested in the market on other projects. So I'm buying properties, buying land, buying this, buying that. I've spent way more than I invested. So for argument's sake, let's say I invested 10,000 and I've maybe spent 70,000 from the market profits doing other things. And let's say now that my portfolio is actually, for example, let's say 30,000. Maybe it's gone down from 100,000 that it was before. So yes, overall, it looks like I've lost money because I was on 100 and now I'm on 30,000. But really and truly, yes, I've lost that 70,000 during a market crash. But even beyond that, I'd previously, withdrew 70 grand of just profits, and I've used it to further my goals in other areas. And I think that's really important, because I think what really gets to people mentally is when they look and it's like, oh, I was up X amount, but they can't see what they did with it. So it's like, great, you was up X amount, but where is that money? It's almost like they lost it back to the market. But now, let's say you've still taken a loss, but throughout the process, you've used that money to further other goals, perhaps bought a car, whatever the case is. It's up to you, it's your prerogative. But then you can look and you say, oh, you know what? Oh, I got a nice watch on my wrist. An example being my Yacht Master I bought from the market. I remember I said to myself, I'm going to make the money. I knew I got the call from Rolex. They said, yeah, we've got a Yacht Master 2 in stock. And I said, cool. I'm coming on, I think, Thursday. They called me on a Monday. I was like, you know what? Between today and Thursday, I'm going to make the money for that and use that to basically buy the watch. And I think between that Monday and Thursday, I ended up making like 40 grand. So, you know what? Cool, the market's crashed. I can see the Yacht Master on my wrist, so I think that's really important. Ideally, try not to do it on frivolous item or purchases. Do it on investments and so on and so forth. So I think there was a period where I was sending like 20, 30 grand a week back home, that being Nigeria, and things were getting done for me. And I think that's really crucial in terms of dealing with the psychology of market crashes, because then you actually see where your money has gone. I think the biggest thing with having money and then losing it is when you can't see where it's gone. You haven't enjoyed that money that you had. It gets to you more in the head. So that's just a couple of things in terms of how to deal with your losses. Once again, I'll try and upload more regularly. I hope you enjoy this video. If I am a bit rusty, I haven't filmed in over 2 months. I don't think I am anyways, but thank you guys always. Keep supporting. By the way, another big reason why I never filmed yet is because I was looking to build a new studio, improve the audio and so on and so forth. But a lot of things went wrong. There was a property I was looking to secure that I was going to move into. I never got that. Just a lot of things went wrong. So I'm still not in the process, or I haven't started the process of building a studio. But then I thought, I can't wait for perfection before I start uploading again. So I'm just going to upload. In fact, this now, I'm in my office right now and I forgot the charger to my camera. I went back home twice and still forgot it because I was thinking about other things. And then I got back to the office after 2 different trips back home to try and get the charger. I got back to the office and I said, oh, I can't film today. And I realized, you know what, you got an iPhone 12 Pro Max or whatever it's called, yeah? And I said, that's excuses. Chuck that on the tripod and film, because then that way you stop procrastinating. Anyways, thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.